Hello, I'm Heidi and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about why and how Finnish changes the way you think. Language and the way we describe the world. Nowadays, most linguists agree that language does not control thought, but it can influence what we pay attention to. I have seen this both in my personal life when I have been learning foreign languages and as a Finnish teacher, because both learning languages and teaching languages shapes in a fundamental way how we perceive the language. One of the first things that is quite interesting, and maybe you've already noticed, is that there are some really interesting vocabulary differences between languages. Also in Finnish, we have some untranslatable words. Some words that do not really translate well. You might need a full phrase to explain what it means. And here you have some examples. You might have seen kalsarikännit because it has become very popular over social media in the recent years. But kalsarikännit is actually a compound word. Kalsari means men's underwear and kännit means drunkenness. So literally it would be something like underwear drunkenness, but it means drinking alcohol at home alone in your underwear with no intention of going out. And yes, I think it's a real thing here in Finland. Some people do it. And especially during COVID, I think many people were doing it even outside of Finland, maybe for the first time in their lives. So kalsarikännit became even more popular. But here's an example sentence. Pekka veti perjantaina kalsarikännit. It's a bit hard to translate this sentence literally. It would be something like, Pekka was drinking alcohol at home on Friday without any intention of going out. Second example, tykkylumi. It means heavy snow that accumulates on tree branches and can bend or break them. In Finnish, we have a lot of words for snow, and many of them might not have translations in many other languages. So if I say metsä oli täynnä tykkylunta in Finnish, we would have to say something like the forest was full of heavy snow on the trees in English. And the whole sentence becomes a lot longer because we have to explain out tykkylunta because there's no clear equivalent in English for that word. So when you're learning Finnish and you come across with some of these words that do not really have any clear translation in your native language, you might actually learn completely different concepts that you never even paid attention to before. Example number 3, talkoot. Talkoot is a situation where people voluntarily gather to help someone complete a task or a project together without being paid. It's kind of like voluntary work, but not exactly, because it has also the idea of a community spirit, cooperation, and helping each other in a community. So it's not any sort of modern voluntary work. It's more like communal voluntary work. If I say, for instance, naapurit järjestivät talkoot ja rakensivat uuden aidan, it means the neighbors organized a community work day and built a new fence. So here, talkoot would be a community work day. Depending on the sentence, the translation may change a little bit. And you can see that it becomes quite long. We have only one word for this in Finnish, but you need several words to explain it properly in English. Example word number 4, viitsiä. Viitsiä is a verb, and it expresses that you do not want to make the effort to do something, often because it feels unnecessary, inconvenient, or slightly troublesome. For example, en viitsi mennä kauppaan enää näin myöhään. It would be something like, I don't feel like going to the store so late. And viitsiä here bears a lot of meaning. It means like I don't feel like it because it's like too troublesome, too difficult, or also sometimes it can have the idea that it would bother someone. Maybe not in this case, but because it's the salespeople's job to be working there anyways. But in some other sentence, it might mean also that you are kind of not wanting to do something because it would bother somebody else. For example, viitsisitkö viedä roskat? This would be, would you mind taking the trash out? Sometimes viitsiä might translate as, would you mind doing something? And here, viitsiä also has that idea that, yeah, I know that I'm bothering you. Would you mind? Huvittaa. Huvittaa means to feel like doing something. So we have just one word for this, feeling like something. Minua ei huvita lähteä tänään mihinkään. I don't feel like going anywhere today. Jaksaa is a verb that expresses that you have enough energy for something. Or if the sentence is negative, that you don't have enough energy for something. For example, en jaksa tänään lähteä mihinkään. I don't have enough energy to go anywhere today. And by the way, jaksaa is extremely common verb in Finnish. And I personally like this verb a lot. It has so much meaning in it, and it's, very useful because I think all of us have sometimes this feeling like, I just don't have energy for this, right? So we have a very specific word for that. Well, let's leave the vocabulary aside and let's focus on other things, how language can shape how you think. In Finnish, we focus a lot on the location. Finnish has many location cases. So this is kind of something that can improve your location thinking. As a language learner, you are constantly forced to think whether you are somewhere, whether you're going somewhere or coming from someplace, because all of these have different grammatical cases. Well, this is pretty basic example, but soon I'm gonna give you a little bit more advanced example. So maybe you already know that kaupassa means in a shop, kauppaan into the shop, kaupasta from the shop. Nothing so strange here yet, because in English also we express the exact same idea, but just with prepositions, right? So it's not really that different. However, if you want to say, I'm buying food in a store, in Finnish you say, olen kaupassa ostamassa ruokaa. Here, apart from expressing the location in the noun kaupassa, we are also expressing the location in the second verb, ostamassa. So sometimes we actually have to think about location also in the verb forms. And this is something that never happens in the English language as such. Another example, menen kauppaan ostamaan ruokaa. I'm going to the store to buy food. We have the location actually here twice expressed. Kauppaan, to the store, and also ostamaan, meaning to buy something. You're going somewhere to buy. Kaupasta, from the shop. Tulen kaupasta ostamasta ruokaa. This in English would be, I'm coming from the store after having bought food. And in Finnish, we express this idea by using the location twice, both in kaupasta, from the store, and ostamasta, from buying. So we are kind of saying that we are coming from buying something, but it means that we are coming back after we have bought something. This same kind of location thinking is also applied, for example, for postpositions and also to many words expressing direction, like saying up, outside, inside, etc. I have another video on this topic and you can check it out. I will leave the video up there and also in the description, so you can check it out after this video. Third thing that is quite different in Finnish is how we express ownership. Ownership works differently in different languages, and if we compare it to English, it's very different. In English, we simply say, I have a book, and we have a clear verb that expresses having. However, in Finnish, we do not have the verb to have. Instead, we say literally, at me is a book. Minulla on kirja. Minulla is actually a form of location, meaning at me or on me. And then we have the same verb that we use for being. So at me or on me is book. And another example, if we compare it to Spanish, for example, is that in Spanish you express age with the verb to have. Tengo 30 años. Literally, it would be I have 30 years. So in Spanish, you are kind of expressing that you have your age. But in Finnish and in English, we are our age, right? So we say, minä olen 30 vuotta. And here's my personal observation. As native speakers, we rarely think about how our language works. And things simply feel natural the way we have learned them. I had never actually analyzed Finnish so profoundly before I started to teach it for foreigners. Because I see that you, as language learners, have so many questions about structures, about vocabulary. And sometimes when I was starting my teaching, I didn't have a clear answer because I noticed that there's actually simply a gap between these two languages. For example, when it comes to vocabulary. First times I had to explain, for example, the verbs viitsiä or jaksa were a little bit complicated because I was like, yeah, actually, there's not just one word for this. Learning languages and teaching languages can actually make you realize things that you had never thought about before. And also, you might notice some interesting things about your native language that you never noticed before learning Finnish. Maybe you notice that some structures work similarly, but they don't work in English. Or maybe you notice that you have some words in your native language that you just cannot translate into Finnish, no matter how hard you try, because there's not an equivalent word. Another interesting thing that can shape your thinking is that in Finnish, words often function like puzzle pieces. Finnish is an agglutinative language, meaning words are built from different pieces. We put grammatical cases at the end of words. We also have something called possessive suffixes that can express that you have something or that you own something, something is yours. Here's an example. Talo means house, sa means in, and ni means my. Talo is a word, but sa and ni are not even full words. They are elements that you add to other words. So if I say talossani, it means in my house. But the word order is very different from English because it would be something like house in my. Right? So when you are learning Finnish, you also have to kind of learn how to put the puzzle pieces together, and also you have to be able to switch the order of these little puzzle pieces in your mind when you are translating. Learners often start breaking words into components, and it can be almost like solving a small puzzle. Learning a very different language increases metalinguistic awareness. This means that when you're learning a language like Finnish, which is most likely very different from your mother tongue or from the languages you've learned before, you also learn to think about language itself in a very different way and how we describe the world through language. Another interesting thing that you'll notice when you learn Finnish is that Finnish is pretty much gender neutral. We have only one pronoun both for he and she in Finnish. Both are hän. So when we are talking about somebody, we don't really know whether the person is a female or a male unless we specify the person's name or we specify that they are a man or a woman. But in most cases, this is not necessary in Finnish, and we don't need this information. We also don't have grammatical gender, like some other languages do. For example, in Spanish, there's la mesa, the table, which is feminine, and el baloncesto, which is basketball, and it's a masculine word. And you simply have to learn those genders by heart when you're learning a language. Well, in Finnish, we don't have this phenomenon at all. Also, in Finnish, we have only one word for most professions. For example, näyttelijä means both actor and actress. In English, you have still some professions in which you have to make a clear distinction based on the gender of the person. Well, in Finnish, we often have just one word. In some cases, we have two words. And I actually have another video about this topic and whether Finnish is really gender neutral. You can check it out after this video. I will leave the link up there and in the description. Processes versus completed actions. Many languages have some form of patterns to express that some action is either completed or incompleted. In Finnish, we often express this idea through partitive. Partitive is one of the grammatical cases that learners struggle a lot with, but here's a practical example how that works. Minä juon kahvia. I'm drinking coffee. Minä juon kahvin. I'll drink a coffee. Minä join kahvia. I drank coffee or I was drinking coffee. Minä join kahvin. I drank a coffee. You can see that in all of these sentences, the verb form is exactly the same. Well, either in present, juon, or in the past tense, join. But we don't have any difference in the verb form depending on whether the action is completed or incomplete. In English, you express this idea normally via the verb and via the form of the verb. The continuous verb form expresses that the action is not completed yet, the ing form, like drinking. But in Finnish, we express this by using partitive, or if the action is complete or we refer to the whole action, then we normally use genitive, or, well, some call it accusative as well, but it looks exactly the same as genitive. We also have many other ways how we use partitive, and many of these functions for partitive are not even clearly translatable into English because English has nothing like partitive. Learning Finnish and learning partitive is actually something that forces you to think many other factors you might have never thought before in language. Compound words. In Finnish, we love compound words. Compound words express specific ideas or concepts. So when two words form a new concept together, we normally write them together. For example, kahvikuppi is a coffee cup. In English, you would write it separately, but in Finnish, we write it together because kahvi is one thing, kuppi is another thing, but when we put them together, well, they form a new concept, kahvikuppi, the kind of cup you use mainly for coffee. And talvisää means winter weather, also in English written separately, but in Finnish it's one clear concept. Talvi is one thing, sää is another thing. Talvisää is the kind of weather that you often have in winter. And sähköposti literally would be electricity mail, meaning email. Hammaslääkäri means dentist, but it literally means tooth doctor. A language that has a lot of compound words might help you to understand better the relationship between different words and how to form concepts out of those words. So, some of you might ask, does Finnish improve logical thinking? It's true that Finnish grammar is very systematic and words are built from meaningful pieces, and there are a lot of different pieces like that. And learners must recognize patterns well when they are learning Finnish. So therefore, we can say that learning Finnish increases awareness of language structure. It might not improve logical thinking automatically, but at least it improves your awareness of structure. And maybe indirectly, it can improve logical thinking. But this is something that has not been investigated so much. I don't think there's enough research on this topic. So that's why we cannot really claim this to be true yet. But what we can say for sure is that learning a very different language from yours helps you to pay attention to small details in language in a way that you had not done before. In Finnish, we also have both so-called spoken Finnish and written Finnish, and they differ quite a lot. For example, in standard Finnish or in written Finnish, we say or write, minä tulen takaisin 9, meaning I'll come back at 9. But in spoken Finnish, we say, mä tuun takas 9. I'll come back at 9. Words often become a lot shorter and we tend to drop out some consonants and some vowels. Both of these are equally important to learn, and the fact that you have to learn kind of, in a way, two languages or two different forms of the same language also increase awareness of context and social situations, because we use written language in very different situations compared to when we would use spoken Finnish. Why this even matters? Why should we care about how language affects our thinking? I would say that language shapes attention, and different languages highlight different ideas. Learning a language is learning a new perspective, and that's why learning a new language is also so beautiful. It can broaden your thinking, it can broaden the way you see the world or the way you perceive the world. And now I have a question for you. Has learning Finnish changed the way you think? And if it has, can you give me some examples in the comments? I would be interested in knowing your thoughts about this topic. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel to get notifications when I upload new Finnish related videos. See you! Bye!